Yesterday we spoke about the classes and IDs in CSS. So we discussed that a class is basically signified by the little dot, and then you have, your class name. So class, whatever it is, boom, that's your class. But in terms of what we were talking specifically around CSS is that it has this level of inheritance or this level of importance or hierarchy, and I just wanted to kind of sketch it out into this little pyramid. I know it's a triangle, just imagine it's a pyramid. Okay. Anyway, enduring my drawing skills. So when you have a look at this, you go, alright, well, what are all these different layers? And the different layers are pretty much these. And I'll explain them. I'll explain the top one in a moment. But when we label them, they'll make more sense. Where's my label tool? So if we have a look, we can go, okay, well, this is my tag, right? So anytime you define a tag, that's kind of at the bottom of the pyramid. And then we start saying, all right, well, there's this other layer here, which is a class. And so a class is basically what we were messing around with yesterday, and that's all around creating a grouping around things. And then we have this highest layer here, which is the ID, or the hashtag ID, whatever you want to kind of call it. There's another layer above that, which is also something we were kind of playing with, and what we'll do is we'll call that the inline style, because what we're doing here is we're basically allowing the intrusion of CSS into HTML. And that's what we did. So when we had a look at that, what we did is we specifically wrote CSS inside of an attribute that was inside of a tag. Whereas when we look at the pyramid here, at the very bottom of it is this tag concept. So if you think of the tag concept, and we just say this thing here is what we're doing at a broad level. This is where our body tag lives, right? So when we have our body tag, or a paragraph tag, or a div tag, these are all these tags that we're kind of messing around with. So whether it's body or div or paragraph or image, these are all tags. So at that tag level, we're just kind of redefining all of those. And when we get to a class level, we say, well, look, there's a few paragraphs that we'd like to have with a class of special or whatever it is. And so instantly we kind of have the grouping. So any kind of, didn't really think through this red, did I? Anytime let's see if that works. Not really that much better. Anytime you think of a P and in terms of a paragraph, it's there, but then you look at the class and you go, okay, well, what is that? Well, that's our grouping. So we're grouping all of these different things around this class called special. And the way we would write the class is obviously we'd say dot special, and then with our squiggly brackets, inside those we'd have some specific CSS that we would attach to it. Then we get our ID. Now the ID is like kind of the top of the hierarchy here. This is our div. ID is menu. Right? That's the top of the hierarchy. And in terms of writing the CSS for it, let's put them over here. The CSS would also be the same thing. So hash, menu, open squigglies, close them, and put some stuff inside. And that's really the hierarchy that we're looking at here. We're looking at this whole kind of structure to what CSS can and can't do, and we start with broad strokes of these little tag definitions at the bottom. We then come up with some groupings. The groupings aren't always apparent. You might have to do some IDs and then realize you're repeating yourself and then go, oh, there's an opportunity here to group these things and make them into a class. And that's perfectly fine too. And then there's the inline styles. The reason I draw it at the very top and I put it on this little plank is to simulate the uneasiness and the scariness of having inline styles, because ideally you don't have inline styles. Ideally you kind of just have all of this with no inline styles. The inline styles is something that you do in case of emergency or while you're prototyping, meaning you're developing your concept and you're just trying things out before you figure out whether it should belong in a tag or a class or an ID. But regardless, these are all your tools, these are all your options when writing and when developing your style sheet. And this is where you get all the ideas around reusing portions of your CSS so that the inheritance can actually work for you and reduce the amount of code you're managing, as well as give you the flexibility to modify the page at a global level in terms of colors and font changes and size changes without having to worry about it too much. So hopefully this gives you a bit of a insight into how that all works. But what we'll do specifically is we'll try and just mess around more with these things in the code view. But I just thought that it was a nice kind of moment in time for us to break away from that and just draw some pictures in Photoshop and talk to them. So that's it for today. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you guys next time.